All right, we are live for another episode of TDRS, and as you can visibly see, my brother Neo, who is saving the world in between Tulsa and Atlanta, hopefully will be joining us soon on today. And our sister Tanisha is not on. For those who may not have seen her Facebook post, this is her mother's birthday, so we're sending a heavenly happy birthday to her mother. And we, acknowledge that this is a difficult time for her. So we send her much love during this moment. And as we have our aunties on today, I know that she's smiling and feeling that love in Chicago, in her moment right now. So with just acknowledging that, welcome everyone. Please share this out with your family, your friends, and your network. This is such an important conversation today, but also we have the Three Woke Aunties on TDRS. I'm so honored, right? Because, everyone loves mama and grandmama, but we all know that Black aunties play such a powerful role in our families, in our communities, in our schools. Because if mama can't be there, auntie is going to be there, or she's sending one of the kids or someone to make sure that you're good. And so we're going to highlight the power of the Black family unit. But I want the aunties to tell us just a little bit about who they are. And we'll get into our conversation about what's happening in the world, and then how we're going to liberate some minds on today. So, Auntie Renee, I'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Auntie Renee. Before I get started, I would definitely want to send health, wealth, and healing to our sister Tanisha over there. I'm here for you, praying for you, love you, need you, need to call, vent, whatever. That's what Auntie is here for. Neo, we hope we get to see you. Let's go. We here, ready. Auntie Renee is a mother of 5. Auntie to a lot. And it's just time that we start speaking health and wealth back into our community, trying to make our community stronger than what it has ever been.
All right, I like that. See the intro already. This is a warm up. We're gonna have a revival on today, y'all. I hope y'all are ready for this. Auntie Elaine, let's hear from you.
Good morning, Jason. Thank you for having us. It's good to be on with you, sending love and condolences and thinking about you to Tanisha. I am a mother of 3 Black boys, young men, I should say. I am a community activist and a parent advocate, not just for my child, but all of our children, making sure that the family is tight together, supported, and love my 2 sisters. Can't imagine doing any of this work without them, and glad to be here.
Awesome. I love that as well. Auntie Toya, it's on you.
Hey, I'm Auntie Toya, and I'm a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 6. And I just want to tell a quick story about Tanisha Peoples, right? And my heart and love goes out to her, and whatever she may need, I'm here for her. But I just want to say that child got me pumped up to do the work, okay? Like back when coronavirus, was starting and we were protesting, and I saw her out there protesting in the street, and I was like, I used to do that, and I could still do that, because I'm probably the oldest one on this podcast. I'm gonna say it at the beginning, okay? I'm the oldest one on this podcast, and I didn't think that I still had that power and energy. I know I had power, but it was the energy, right? And she had me out there protesting for internet for all here in Philly. It was amazing. We all did it simultaneously around the country, and yeah, I just want to. And Neo, I'm looking into my history about Tulsa, because now I'm learning like more than what I knew before, because they ain't teaching us nothing up in these schools about Tulsa. So yeah, I'm here. And thanks for having us, Jason.
I love a story, and I love all the positivity, the light, and energy that we're sending to our brother Neo, who's doing the work, y'all. In Tulsa and also Atlanta, helping us make change here, especially through the Black Wall Street Time. And so, please check them out, the work that they're doing, and also much love to our sister Tanisha. So, while I have everyone's attention, make sure again you share this out with teachers, parents, those who are in the fight for our families that are um, battling the prison system, but also battling the education system at the same time. So, want to speak to white fragility. That's my book for this episode as well. Also, tune into TDRS Plus. That's on my personal blog where I get into a little bit more of what we may not get to on the show. And so, I want to go to the aunties. I want to ask them about what's been happening across our country in regards to the attack against Asian Americans. We cannot overlook that. There were thousands of people here in Georgia who were marching, protesting, advocating, bringing awareness to situations that have been happening. A big part of that conversation, though, has been that Black people always come to the aid of other races, and a lot of times we may not see them as vigilant or as vocal for Black lives mattering. So, aunties, how do you guys feel about that? And what can you speak to the people that may be battling with speaking up for other ethnicities?
So I'll go
We all
first.
quiet.
I'll go first. I definitely feel a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, hate is hate. And it always seems like some of the biggest perpetrators are, unfortunately, white people. It's come to be in this country that the white supremacy groups, or white nationalists, and just people who are to the bone racist about anything that is not white, are attacking minorities, definitely, Black people. And it does seem like we've been raised in a culture where Black people are often taught, forgiveness, forgive your enemy, turn the other cheek. We step up for all, because I think we realize that, we're so steeped in being the victims of racism that we definitely feel for other races when it happens. But on the same note, there's a population of people who don't stand for us. And it's hurtful to me that we are always almost expected to stand up and speak up for other races. And we do. But I mean, how about some of that love back for us? Right? I mean, it's not a tit for tat, and please don't construe what I say as meaning that. Because like I said, hate is hate. Nobody should be forgiven for it, and nobody should have to go through it. But at the end of the day, support us like we support you.
No, that's good. And I know we're going to go to Auntie Renee next, but let me just jump in right quick and say this. I need for Black lives to matter to all Black people. My issue is not with supporting, because I supported my students that were out on the front lines this weekend advocating for this. But what I do want people that are listening to this, and you see your loved ones, you see your neighbors, you see people that you work with not respecting Blackness, not respecting Black lives, and not lifting up the issues that are happening to us, you need to check them. This conversation isn't just about, oh, don't go and support other races. No, this is about you need to support your own. And so, Auntie Renee, I'm gonna let you come back in and soften it up just a little bit from that. But let's hear from you.
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm not the soft enough a rapper.
I know.
I'm really not to say harsh on the whole subject, but one thing the Asian American community knows how to do is stick together. They don't care whether they wrong, right, indifferent. They will stick together. And one thing for sure about my African American community, we have got to get better with that. Just like you said, Black lives have to matter to Black people before they can matter to anybody else. I'm they've they were saying, you have our foot on our neck. They've done that since the beginning of time. We were the ones who came over here who knew how to do math. We were the ones who came over here knew how to do masonry. Everything was built on our backs. So
That's
how
right.
else to control the people but to take that from us? So when you take that from us, in that sense, no more. You can't do masonry more, carpentry, like all those things are so like unheard of, especially in the black community. You take all that from us. You're taking what we had from us. You get to control the people. We have to get back to doing better. Hate again, like Auntie Elaine said, hate is hate, and I don't
Mhm.
think that anybody should be hated. But one thing we know is African American community is hate. We know hate from our own kind. We know hate from everybody else. We have got to get better, people. And why not start today? So the way you start today is you got to look at yourself. We're going to
Good.
have that inward look and have that real hard and this hard thing. I understand, but we need to have that real inward look and then get better from there. Move forward.
No, that's it. Hate is hate, y'all. And it does start with us. And there is no better time than to start right now. Do it today. This is what I tell my students. You see a problem, you got to fix it. And don't wait 2 weeks. Don't wait 2 years. If you have the ability to do it now, you need to do just that because tomorrow is not concrete. Now I'm gonna go ahead and see if anybody else want to speak to this, and I want to definitely get into another Black family conversation that's happening in the news. But Auntie Toya, did you want to speak to
I
that?
just wanted to say that in the news they talked about him having like a sexual addiction or something like that, and it's like, no, it was white supremacy.
Thank
He
you.
acted on the white supremacy. That's what it was. And then the other thing, Jason, when you talk about like the Black community and they say Black on Black crime, the thing is, I think that our community has been brainwashed for so long that we need to re-educate ourselves and think about some of the things that we do. But the other thing I want to say, because you're talking about what's going around in the country, and you did bring up this, but you see what's happening in Philly. I mean, like the murder rate is off the chain. It's definitely off the chain. So I'm just saying we need to look within our community for our healing. We need to
Yeah.
we need to look at ourselves for our own healing because I don't think anybody else is going to save us.
Yes. So I was getting ready to, just break something down for the people from White Fragility, but our brother Neo has been able to join us. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I found some internet in the city. Can you imagine that?
Right. So I listen. I've already told the people that you were probably fighting the power.
Yeah.
It's good to have you on. So we were just actually getting ready to go into this big conversation, and then we're going to get into our main topic for today. The Black community has been in an uproar, especially those in the Black church and the Black, faith community regarding Kirk Franklin, and the incident with his son. And I wanted to just highlight that. I see so many comments that are happening. A lot of people are now experts, and they know everything, right? And so, a lot of these Black family issues, and this is why I wanted to ask the aunties about this, are swept under the rug. We know in the Black community, we don't like to talk about certain things in our households, which I feel like attribute to a lot of the poor behaviors that we do see outside of the system that does oppress us. And so what do you guys think about that?
Can I go first this time, guys?
You got it.
Do you mind? It's amazing how many people, and this might sound a little harsh, but it's who I am. It's amazing how many people can get on social media, and say something about how someone else decides to raise their child, but you can't get on social media to disgrace the education system that's been holding you down since the dawn of time. It boggles my mind. I get conflicted. They like to say here at work, Miss Brown always says I'm confused. I'm very confused and very concerned. We are so worried about everything else. When are we going to worry about what's going on? Again, it's that pointing that finger syndrome. You
Yeah,
want
that's
to point
good.
that finger. But you gotta look at the ones that's pointing back at you. You got your house. Stop throwing. My grandma was good for that. You want to throw rocks? You live in a glass house, Renee.
Yeah.
All right, grandma. All right. So we gotta get better with that. Like that was a travesty. What that man did with his son was what that man did. And I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't find anything wrong with it, but most people be like, "Oh, Renee, I'm crazy and wild anyway." So I was cool with it.
That's you though, and don't be apologetic about that. And people have to learn how to take things for as they are, and I think that's a major part. Brother Neo, I
Yeah,
see you.
I
I
got
see
to
your mouth
chime in
moving.
on this, and y'all forgive me if y'all hear these cars, but we have some internet issues today.
It's okay,
So,
brother.
yeah. So about the whole Kirk Franklin situation, like I think some people would look at me as an advocate for kids and for parents and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that Neo actually didn't really speak out about the whole Kirk Franklin situation." But I'm agreeing with my sister Renee's with grandma. Like, that's none of our business, and that's just kind of how I feel about the whole situation. There is no record of Kirk Franklin physically abusing his children. There's no record or history of him even verbally abusing his children. Him and his 30-year-old son, who's grown, they had a whole issue. It wasn't like he was a teenager and was, dealing with this, on a regular basis. I'm pretty sure his mom would have spoke up and said something if that was the case, but that wasn't the case. Let me tell you something. The second I listened to the whole video twice, and I thought, like, the first time I was like, okay, well, maybe he was a little rough with his son. But when I listened to it again, I was like, he actually did disrespect his dad. And like, let me tell you, if I ever disrespected my fathers, they're both, deceased. But if I ever, man, they would have whooped my behind. And and he's lucky that didn't happen. Like, and the thing is like your parents, they say all kind of stuff. Like OGs will say some crazy stuff, but they will never lay their hands on you. Not when you're grown like that, So I've definitely given my brother a pass. Have I ever spoken rough to any of my students? I don't want to say I've spoken rough with them, but I will say that I've spoken out of love and I've been very direct with them because I love them, right? And so I feel like the only people that can really understand that whole situation are Black parents, right? They're the ones that really get it. All I heard was, to some other folks, it may sound rough, but to me, it sounded like love. And I'll say one more point. I know I'm a little long-winded today. I'll have one more point. When I was a kid, I used to do gymnastics, right? And I had a gymnastics coach who was from Russia. And let me tell you, that Russian coach, he was raw with everything that came out of his mouth. And then I learned that a lot of the Russian, like the culture it sounds rough to us, right? Because we're Americans. But to them, it's just like regular language. So there's a whole cultural difference in the way that, they communicate with one another. And so that's kind of how I equated that whole situation.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. And I think that, just in having a conversation, the reality is everyone has a perspective on something, but do we have a perspective on what we all collectively should be focused on? And so next month, we actually are going to be focused on religion, and we're going to have some really deep conversations, around deconstructing, excuse me, the myths around the Black church and what the real responsibility is now. And I'll stop there. I'm gonna let Auntie Toya tell us her tidbit on that, and then we're gonna go into how we're really teaching these kids about real life. But go ahead, Auntie Toya.
Did I tell you to get upstairs and wash your clothes? Okay, that's what I'm gonna start with, right? My mom, right? I'm old school, right? We have mad respect for my mom. Some words didn't come out our mouth, right? I remember my niece. We were at a dinner. My niece was acting out. She said, "Come on, baby. We're gonna go to the bathroom." Right? So we came back, and baby was sitting straight up and acting right at the table, right? And I'm not telling you my mom put like crazy hands on us. My mom taught us to respect our elders. My mom taught to respect, to have respect. The other thing is this: I've done it really good and I've done it really bad, right? You know what I'm saying? So any one of my kids could probably come on and say a few things about me being a mom, right? There is no book out there. You know what I'm saying? You just learn from your mistakes. So with this man and his family, you don't know what that son has done to him. You don't know where he was out there doing. There's two sides to every story. And if we want to just cancel Kirk Franklin for all them songs we be popping to, no. You just don't know the whole story. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, the cancel culture is definitely something that is not being used in the right context, because if it was, then we should have canceled a lot of things in America that are still criminalizing Black people, which is, what we're highlighting this month is how Black people, not just women, not just men, but what we don't talk about is how our Black children are targeted. So I wanted to just read something to you guys right quick, because a lot of times when we have these conversations, and y'all know how it is, people are tuning into the podcast and say, oh, they just running their mouth. They don't know what they're talking about. So let's go to the research. Let's go to what the people are saying. So in reading White Fragility, it talks about how things such as Black History Month, we talked about this in February, about Dr. Carter G. Woodson's original vision for needing to celebrate Black history in a way of what we're teaching our children. So those, white people who were in charge, this is what it says. They did reinforce celebrations such as Black History Month. In reality, what Black History Month does in public schools is to force Black children to restudy the Civil War and Civil Rights era that depict white people taking away Black people's freedoms and their ability to live. I'm going to stop there, because here's the reality. Everything that we have been teaching our children is incorrect. And so with the aunties today, we want to definitely go into, we should teach Black and brown children not to be afraid, but what does that look like from an advocacy and education standpoint?
But hold on, before we go into it, because I definitely want to hear what the aunties say. So as a teacher, right, as a formal teacher, I taught middle school and I also taught elementary school. And so I will say that the way that the curriculum is set up, the way the history books are set up, they're set up to where you get to the Civil War or you get to the Civil Rights Movement later on in the year, right? That's how the books. And so usually when you're teaching, most teachers will usually go through the book from the beginning all the way to the end. So, I mean, the curriculum has to be completely redone, first of all. That's the first thing that needs to happen. That also includes Black history in the beginning, because our history doesn't begin at the Civil War, right? It doesn't begin when Harriet Tubman started doing our history begins in Africa. So teach that part of the history.
No, that's good. That's good. So aunties, how are we teaching them
first?
No, that's perfect. That's a good perspective from, I don't like to use former teacher. If you're a teacher and you use that gift, you are a teacher. So, from the mouth of a teacher, we hear like, this is what we need. Aunties, chime in. Let us hear what you have to say.
So for me, a couple of things. One, in this day and age, make sure that your child and you go over the student handbook, right? Inside and out. A lot of people don't even realize there is a student handbook. You have to know what is and is not acceptable according to the school. You have to know what the rules are, what the regulations are, what kind of notices you need to put in place, what behavior is acceptable. There's a cell phone policy, so that they are aware of what not to do, right off the bat. Make sure that you go over that with your child. Make sure he understands you can't have a cell phone in this class. You can't have your cell phone out. If you take your cell phone and you head it out, this is why, right? Don't give them a reason to engage you in any way, right? That's going to wind up being a negative interaction. So the other thing is, go ahead.
No, Auntie, go ahead. I have something that I want to ask you about that. Go ahead.
The other thing is discuss with your child the ways that they need to be communicated with people in authority in the school, right? The old adage is you get more flies with bees with honey than sugar, or something to that than the other thing. I don't want to say the word, but You know what I'm getting at.
It's welcome.
You know, you can't, you know, if you're accused of something and you know that you didn't do it, there's no need to wild out and be angry or whatever. You respectfully say, it's not something that I did. You teach them how to respond to accusations. You teach them how to respond to people telling them they did something that they didn't do. Like, you kind of have to coach your child through a culture or an environment that is set up against them, right? And they need to know how to respond, kind of like the talk we have with our kids with how to respond to the police. Unfortunately, you should make sure that they know how to respond in school, to teachers, to administrators, to the police in their school. The other thing is, let them know that after we go through all of these steps and it's still not working out, then it's time to get a parent involved, right? Know your rights. It's almost like going to the police station and saying, I want to talk to my lawyer. Like, I'm not answering anything else until I talk to my lawyer. You tell them, I'm not saying anything else until you get my parent. I'm not discussing anything else with you until my parent gets involved. You need to call my parent and make sure your child knows, you know, is familiar with these steps. The other thing is, always let your parents know when something has happened in school. The minute that it happens, if you can't do it while you're in school, make sure that you make them aware of any kind of altercation or issue that happened at school as far as behavior and discipline, so that your parents can make sure that it was, one, handled in the right way, and two, that none of your rights were violated. So that's for me. As long as I feel like as long as a teacher knows that your child knows their right, they're not going to try them. They're not going to put, they know the kids to bother or, you know, come with the nonsense, and what kids not to.
So, Auntie Elaine, I wanted to speak to that. So, being a former school administrator, I handled discipline, and that was one of the reasons why I actually left school administration in regards to you know, having to handle discipline after having to expel and suspend, you know, students of color. I didn't sign up for that, especially in knowing that, you know, as an activist that is working to dismantle the school to prison pipeline, y'all already know I came with the methods, the strategies. This is how we're going to reach the kids. If they have exceptionalities, let's do this. And it was the buy-in from teachers, Black and brown teachers, some white teachers, but Black and brown teachers that were giving pushback. It was too much. They didn't want to do it. We're not getting paid enough to do all of this. I said, I don't care if they were paying us 30 cents. If this is going to save these kids from being pushed out into gangs and teenage pregnancy and abuse and neglect and all of the other things that are just waiting to grab our children, then we need to do it. But it was the buy-in. Auntie Elaine, you mentioned something about the student handbook. I could see my students sending messages now that these handbooks that encompass behavior and discipline and attendance policies that criminalize our children. They tell our girls not to wear your hair like this. They say if your uniform is too short or if it's too fitted because of your body size, and you're going to be penalized if you come in with locks, if you come in with braids, if you come in with anything that celebrates your Blackness, there's going to be an issue. And so Auntie Renee and Auntie Toya, I'm going to switch up the question just a little bit and ask you guys about, are we unintentionally teaching and criminalizing our children with what the system is giving us as a quote unquote resource? So I want to hear what you guys think about that.
I think that's a double sorted question. That's a double loaded question, really. Two quick stories before I can get into reason why I'm glad you asked that question. When I went to Huey, when I Toy, don't be doing that to me. I went to Huey up until 6th grade, and then I went to, my mom shipped me over to New Jersey for high school. So over there, you know, you get your licenses early and everything like that. My dad and my stepmom sat down and taught me, when you get stopped by the cops, because you're gonna get stopped by the cops because you live in a better part of New Jersey than a lot of people, you put your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. You say yes, sir. You say no, sir, because you need to come home. I don't care if they were right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, so when I came back over to Philly, I thought that's how everybody handled the situation. When I was that, but that wasn't true of how situations were really handled. My son, my reason for saying that, I said, we have to teach our kids from the beginning to know your rights, like Auntie Elaine said. But there are some of us who go in there coming like I would never go to a board meeting where I sit on the board with a bonnet on my head and some slippers on my feet. I'm just it's I'm not presentable. I'm not presentable for myself. Like, okay, I wear a bonnet, but you wear a bonnet to sleep in. You know, you're here to conduct business. So sometimes I think it's, you know, intentional what we do. We want to say everything like locks. If you know locks are beautiful. Here, my sons have them now. At first, I was against it, but you know it grew on me. So I was like, okay, y'all look good. But they, you know, they need to get into those things. Those things have to be worked out. So you should be intentional about what you teach them from the beginning. They should know their rights,
That's good.
no matter what it is. You know about my locks. How does my and like you know how does my locks is presentable? I'm here ready to learn. I have all this and this and this. So when you combat education with ignorance, you're going to get education because they're thinking that you don't have the education in the beginning. See, like my son, they fought for the girls to wear pants. My son and my daughter fought for the girls to wear pants because at first our charter school wasn't allowing them to wear pants during the wintertime. They came with
Yeah.
education to change it. They didn't come with ignorance like they could have. They could have came, oh, we ain't wearing what? I ain't doing. But they came at it with education, had quotes. I'm like, dang, these girls is good. I didn't even think about. I didn't know that. I didn't know, you know. So they came with the education piece. So it was taught to them to come with the education, and then you can change things because you can't change things with ignorance. It's just not going, especially for Black people. It's not going to go
Yeah.
nowhere, but cause you
You
a
know,
huge problem.
that's powerful. I think that it starts at home with our communities, are also reinforcing as well as our schools. It made me think about this. Neo, you know, captured this moment. A key phrase is that it grew on me in the conversation and when you were speaking. And so, Auntie Toya, I want to go to you on, you know, a lot of these things are clear and present dangers, but they're not new. And so, in terms of, you know, dangers that Black youth are facing in public schools right now, um, do you see any similarities and differences when you were growing up as to opposed to what our youth are facing now?
Baby, you think I remember back in the 70s when I went to school? I'm like, I saw that question. You said that question. I was like, oh, damn, I can't remember back that far. But I will say, right? I will say today we have social media and our kids being addicted or walking around like this, you know, and I think social media is just like really it's not always like the best thing. I see that in the city of Philadelphia, a lot of our boys are out here killing one another over what was said on social media, you know, and that's just like it's that's just like crazy. But the other thing, Jason, about that, like I was an 80s baby. Okay, so in the 80s, I went to college. You know, I was in college and you know what the 80s did to us, you know, so yeah, and then if I look at my kids, social media again. Because at first they didn't have phones, and then I'm watching them have phones, and now my oldest grandkids have phones. The dangers. I just think that's dangerous. If that makes
Yeah,
sense. And if I'm answering your question correctly.
no. That I love how you gave your spin and you gave us a little history, but didn't give us too much, and that's fine.
Yeah, thank God.
But I do agree with you on the advancement of technology, and I want to throw this out there for people who may watch this. I watch TV late because that's when I'm up studying and trying to do everything in my own personal life after saving the world. And so one of the shows that I watch is called American Gods, and I thought it was so powerful. The show is based around the old guys and the new guys, specifically around how America has things that we worship, such as fashion, right, and media and celebrity and entertainers and all of that. And it was a powerful conversation between the old guys and the new guys, where the old guys said that you're not living in the age of technology, you're living in the age of manipulation. And I thought about that so heavy even this morning because I said, well, wait a minute. If I'm looking at literacy rates and my great grandparents who didn't finish third grade could read the Bible religiously based off of things that they heard and being able to recognize words, but not having any formal training past third grade. They were able to problem solve, critically think, write their name, do all of these things, right? And now we have teachers like Neo, who has been in elementary and middle school, myself, who has been elementary through high school, and kids still to this day, which is why I'm a special education teacher, cannot spell their name. They can't even tell you that everybody want to come to Atlanta. They thinking that Atlanta is the state. They don't know the difference between a city, a country,
Right.
and a county. They don't know. And so I'm sitting up here like, well, wait a minute. If these kids had early learning centers and then went into elementary school and are now in middle school and they're coming to me with all of these deficiencies, and this is not just even the exceptional learners. These are the kids in the quote unquote general education population. What are our schools really teaching our kids? And so let's talk about that just for a moment. Neo was saying they can't write a simple sentence. So how can they explain to the police that it wasn't me? How can they explain to their teacher that no, that's not what I'm doing?
If I could just jump in. So I had a kid, I had a kid a few years ago, and he came from a public school. And I remember the first few weeks of school, like breaking down. This ain't even my own kid. Breaking down, like with my mom, just like, Mom, this kid can't even read. Like, let me tell y'all, I was physically crying and just shook by the fact that this kid could not read well and could not write a simple sentence. Even his handwriting wasn't good. And this kid was in the 5th grade. And I'm just thinking to myself, Lord, how is he going to make it through the year? And he had a really bad behavioral problem too. But I didn't equate that behavioral problem to I didn't equate that to his intelligence. Because let me tell y'all, the day I found out this kid was smart was probably like I always believed that he was smart, but he proved to me that he was smart. I think it was probably like 6 weeks in. Out of nowhere, he just remembered something that happened 6 weeks ago in a lesson. And I was like, dang, this kid is paying attention. So what has been going on all of these other years? Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm capturing his attention. Perhaps it's because I am a Black male teacher and I look like him. And so I ended up calling one of the Coach Reed. He's a boxing coach in the community, and let me tell you, Coach Reed is an OG for real though. Like this brother is everybody's dad in that community. And so I said, hey, I got another kid for you. You want to try to pick him up after school? And so OG Coach Reed would come by with his band. He always pick up boys and girls who wanted to go to his boxing school. And so I noticed that the kid's behavior started changing once he started going to that boxing school. And I had to give him supplemental work just so he could catch up. And I never demonized him. I taught my kids in class that, we are all at different levels and we have to respect the fact that, not all of us came through the Sankofa/DBCS, pipeline. And so once once everybody else got on the board that, hey, we don't make fun of our, of other students, we created a safe space for him. And I taught my other kids how to create that safe space for him too. So then he started coming out of his comfort zone and he started trying, and he grew so much that year academically. I'm so proud of that kid. I worry about where he is now, because he graduated out of our school system. But yeah, like it's unbelievable how far behind these kids, and then they just keep passing them along. Like that situation that happened in Baltimore with that kid that had a 0.13 GPA. Like, how is that even possible? Just passing them through the system.
Yeah, so I never know. That's a good point that you bring up, because we'll criminalize, the parents, and then we'll criminalize the teacher. I know Raymond is watching, and I saw one of his comments, let's put body cams on the teachers. And then my mind is, so
Yes.
now we're gonna criminalize
Lord
teachers.
have mercy.
What about the administrators that pull
Yeah.
these kids into their offices and suspend them for 10 days because they were chewing gum, or
Right.
because they had a sign in their background that said Black Lives Matters? Now we don't have
Come
any
on
body
now.
cams on them, so that means that we're still gonna allow our children to be criminalized. And for the fact that don't administrators and educational leaders, parents, teachers, aunties, I'm asking y'all because I was an administrator and a district administrator, so I know the answer. But I want y'all to give some insight. Aren't these the people that influence policies that tell teachers that this is how you discipline students? So I'm not for criminalizing teachers when the real issue comes from the people above them that create the policies, that implement the process and provide the leadership. So I'm gonna get off that soapbox. So I'm gonna let you all speak to
Can I
that.
just say, Auntie Toya said something in the comment section like a while back. She said that the parents need to be, at the table when they're making a policy, and I 100%
Yes.
agree with that.
That's what you know. What that's what I
And
was
the
just about to
students.
say. I was just about to say that's why we need more parents on school boards. That's why we need more parents, at the table and being stakeholders, like, and not just at the table for face fronting, right? You need to be at the table to speak your truth,
Yeah.
to protect our kids. And that's the one thing that Dr. Fuller says. Don't be happy that they invited you to the table and you're not opening your mouth to say
That's
something.
right.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I've been on my son's school board since 6 years now. You know what I mean? And I initially I sat back and was quiet because I didn't understand the workings of how a school board goes, right? But then after I figured it out, yes, I need to be in the committees, because even at the school board level, not everything is brought to the school board level, like how to write that book. That's not on the school board. When you're at the school board, they ain't talking about that at all, right? But
Bring it up.
the other things that parents could do is be involved in your school. Okay, now you guys are always talking about bashing parents, right? And this is the one thing I couldn't wait to say when I got on your show, right? Me and Elaine go back and forth about this all the time, right? So first of all, I'm a grandma, right? So I talk really like a grandma, right? I'm not bashing you parents. To everybody out there, I am not bashing you. What I'm trying to tell you is, and guide you to understand is, I want you to learn from my biggest mistakes in life. Okay, the biggest mistakes I made with my older children, and that was trusting that school because they liked the fact that I was coming in and just agreeing. No, you don't have to agree. You have to build a relationship so that your voice is valued. Okay, and that you become a partner. I am so sorry that I'm getting really loud and really emotional about it, but I have the scars. I have the scars. Okay, I have my kids. I got the scars. I did it really bad, and then I did it really good. So I know what I know. I know
Right.
that I know that I know. So yeah.
Can we address this real fast? So somebody said in the comment section, just put cameras in a room. I really want to give you. I want to address
Auntie Renee wanted to highlight that, and I want to get to that in a second because I think that's powerful. Go ahead, Auntie Elaine, and then Brother Neo will come back and chime in after she lays something down for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when Toya says that she and I go back and forth about the bashing of the parents, it's not that we disagree. It's just the method of how we go.
Yeah.
People want to villainize parents for everything that goes on with a kid, from school to just life in general, not knowing or not understanding or not even taking into consideration everything else that parent has to do and is responsible for. All parents are not on the same level, just like all kids are not on the same level. Some parents have no clue how to engage a teacher or an administrator or fight for their kids. And that's what we're here for, to teach them and to support them on doing that. As far as having a seat at the table and not using your voice, there are alternative ways. Like if you can't get on a school board, like every school board is not as inviting to parents as the ones that we serve on. But there are a multitude of ways that you can get your point across and your voice heard. You don't have to be on the school board to go speak at a school board meeting. school board meetings are supposed to be public. Make sure that you're in the room, right? If you have the time, make sure that you're in the room, or send somebody from the family just to sit in and listen and ask questions. And if they don't want to hear your voice in the boardroom, then that's when you start the rallies and the marches. Stand outside the school. Let other parents know what's going on. When you have back to school nights, it's not restricted to just teachers telling you what's going on in the school. You voice your opinion at these back to school nights and let them know, oh, I'm not in agreement with that student handbook. Yeah, you're talking about my child can't wear their hair this way, or my child has natural hair, or my child has dreads or locks or whatever. And this is our culture. And the way that they wear their hair, much like a Kimar, has no bearing on how they learn during the course of the day. Right. We just need to be make certain that parents know the power of their, not just their voice, but their opinion on matters that affect our kids directly. Talk to the teacher. Make sure you know the chain of command. Talk to the teacher. If you're not getting the results you want from the teacher, go to the assistant principal, the vice principal, then you go to the principal, and then you take it from there. Make sure you're following that chain of command, because the first thing they will tell you is, you didn't talk to so-and-so, so I can't talk to you. Right?
Yeah.
Form bonds with other parents, right? Become that force. It's power in numbers. And the more people you have on the same page, the more powerful your voice becomes. And just make sure that you know to exercise
it. I like to say, if I can speak, Jason.
Yeah, go ahead,
I was holding on. I was holding on. We love Auntie Elaine, and I'm gonna give you the real reason why we love Auntie Elaine, because for me, and I can just speak for me, she calms all this out. Because let me tell you, this ruckus I have in me. She's like, Renee, you might not want to go about it that way, and then I can really sit down and rethink it. But I'm still coming with the same energy. You have to start to be about that business. I am not here to bash a parent, but what I will tell you, what I will not do is, I will not tell you it's raining outside and you go outside 4 times without an umbrella. I'm not about that. Wrong person, wrong time. Look up Auntie Elaine. She'll help you a little bit better than what I can. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not ashamed to say it. You have to know who you are and what type of person you are. If they won't let y'all in that board meeting, please look up the Three Woke Aunties, because Auntie Renee is here with all the smoke and points to help you out. Trust and believe it.
I love that.
I'm here for it all. Like you were just saying, how are we passing kids? I sat on a board meeting. I spoke at our board meeting here at the School District of Philadelphia board meeting the other night. And this board meeting was so long, I almost didn't want to speak, but I held on. And to listen to the real that came out of these educators' mouths, and the disgust that I have for a lot of the educators now, administrators and educators, off of what they spoke, is something real. A school in the city of Philadelphia has 10% literacy. Mm-hmm. And y'all are okay with this. I am confused. And we're talking about not no just regular old, what we call here special admit schools. This is a regular traditional public school in the city of Philadelphia with 10% literacy. 10%.
That sounds like a lot of schools. Yeah.
I'm confused at how we are okay with this, even as just an African American person. How about that? I'm gonna just be honest.
Well, Auntie Renee, I can tell you, we're not focused on that.
That don't matter.
I'm looking in the comments just now on our show, and
yes.
but we're recreating prisons and schools, and I'll say this, that putting body cams on teachers is not a solution when we're already not giving teachers innovation in classrooms. When I hear that, and I'm gonna pass it over to Brother Neo. When I hear that, I hear a lack of leadership around policy development and policy change. I hear a lack of support for teacher diversity. What is Brother Sharif telling us about in his work? Like, if we're training teachers, if we're changing the pipeline, why do I need to police my teachers when I'm training them to reach my children in a way that's beneficial to them? And so if we're going to put body cams on teachers, this is what I know the system is going to do. They're going to say, oh, yeah, you're giving us the autonomy to spend this money on things such as more police officers in schools, right? Which I want to get to this next question around how are we protecting Black kids
Yeah.
returning to public schools with more police officers than we do counselors
But
and
before we
now
get to
somewhat
that,
teachers.
And you
I want to
go there,
before we
before
get
you
to that,
say
I
something,
definitely want to
Nehemiah.
address that. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before you go, Nehemiah, I liked how you said that you with the gentleman you just had, and I think it speaks to Jason's what he was just saying. You took it upon yourself to make sure that you could get through to that child. And I'm
That
just
was it.
saying,
Yeah.
if you cannot, if you as a teacher, and again, I'm not here to bash nobody because I teach myself. I'm at work right now. As a teacher, if you cannot take it upon yourself to learn and re-educate yourself on your craft,
That's
that's
good.
a disgrace to me. You we have to re-educate ourselves as parents every day. Why
Yep.
don't you think that you should be able to re-educate and reevaluate what you're doing in that classroom? So what the administrator is not with you. So what? I'm gonna do everything I need to do through the curriculum, by the curriculum. I'm gonna look at the state standards. I'm gonna do everything I need to do. We need to have more people who care than worry about what the administration is doing. Because we can't worry about what nobody else is doing with their kid. We have to make sure our kid is cool too. So I
So
mean that's just all I had to say. I'm sorry.
Go
no,
ahead, brother
you're
Neil, and then
good.
we'll
This
get
is
into the
y'all
question.
are the guests, so please be long-winded as much as you want. I want to say this. So look, at the school that I worked at, we actually did have cameras in every single classroom. Every single classroom had a camera in it. And the way that we were trained like the Marva Collins / Deborah Brown way. That's how we literally was trained to teach the kids. It is extremely effective. And so like I hardly ever sat down in my classroom. And let me tell you something. If like Ms. Brown or somebody, looked at them cameras and saw them teachers sitting down for an extended period of time, then we knew that them teachers weren't teaching, right? They weren't up and moving around and engaging with those kids. And so I think that I absolutely agree. I think that cameras should be in every single classroom. The reason why is because there are some people that are there for a paycheck and they are not there to engage and teach these kids. And so they have to be held accountable. They can, and adults, like a lot of adults, as sadly as it is, we're more likely to believe another adult before we are to believe a child. So if a child says, well, the teacher ain't really helping me, all you got to do is look at them damn cameras and see the teacher sat on their ass for 45 minutes and wasn't engaging with them babies. And then they wonder why some of these schools perform better than others, right? It's because the engagement between the teacher and the student isn't there. And there's a test, and the summer comes, they look at the assessment, they're like, oh, your kids aren't performing, they're not reading. Well, the teacher been sitting down on their ass the whole time. That's the reason why they can't read.
Yeah, no, and I think that's powerful, and I also think that it goes back to leadership, because in schools that I've worked in and have been successful, in the schools that I'm in now, our administrators are in the classrooms. They're observing what the teachers are doing. They're helping them. That's why you have administrative admins that's supposed to be doing their jobs. And I think that this is where we get lost in the system in regards to wanting to recreate. That's what this book speaks to. It speaks to how we as Black people recreate the same oppressive systems that have been presented before us. So, all of that is valid, but it goes back to, okay, you adding a camera and still seeing the same issues. What have we done to support the teacher pipeline? What have we done to recreate curriculums that are reaching students and that are reaching teachers who will even want to teach that? So again, the things that control the policies and control the money, we're not talking about. We're just talking about the issues, which is why I wanted the aunties to speak to their level of advocacy around how do we train parents to speak out and say, hey, we know what the problem is, but what are we doing to channel the policies that change the money, the funding formulas that get us the resources that we need? So I want to hear a little bit about that.
So the first thing, let me say this, Jason. The first thing is, this is not a parent issue. It's not a teacher issue. It is a us together, especially for Black people. It is a us together issue. And one side is not going to win without the support of the other. right? And I personally don't see anything wrong with cameras being in a classroom because it lends to the accountability of what's going on in the classroom. And if you are performing your job, like we got some great Black educators out here. We have some that aren't Black, that are great educators and that are really in this job to do what we need them to do to teach our Black babies. And having a camera in the class is not going to deter them from that. If you're intentional about really educating our children, I don't think anybody would have a problem with having a camera in the class, right? It's kind of proof for you to know that, you know, if somebody questions what I'm doing in here all day long, it's right there on the camera. The only people that would seem to have a problem with it for me, I don't think it's oppressive in that if you're doing what you signed up to do, nobody's going to oppress you by saying, you know, we saw you helping that kid read. You know, we saw you spending extra time with this kid trying to help him through this math problem. I don't think that anybody would be bothered being accountable for what they signed up to do. What I do think an issue is with people always talking about how, you know, if parents don't get in a room and say, you know, you need to support these teachers and you need to do this and you need to do that. And if you don't do that, then that's why your kid is not learning. It's not on, you know, teachers have just as much right and responsibility to speak up about what's not happening with the administration as parents do. Yeah, parents are going to speak on what you're doing wrong for my baby and what's not happening for my baby. And they need to speak up about that. And also, you know, the Three Woke Aunties are in full support of supporting a teacher that is supporting your child. But if you're a teacher that's not supporting my child, I'm not going to speak up for you. I'm going to speak out against you. Right. So that line needs to be, you know, defined. We're not here as support for parents just because. We're here as support for parents because it's a need. Our babies are suffering. These classrooms aren't built for our children, and we need to make sure that we guide transactions and policies and things that are happening in the classroom so that it's beneficial for our kids.
You talk about cameras in classrooms. Cameras been in classrooms for the last year. Have they not?
Yeah, and I think that's the confusion of the conversation. It's not so much of cameras in the classroom. It was the body cam conversation on teachers having to wear body cams. And so I think that's where a lot of that stemmed from. I mean, neither here nor there. I think that the main part of the conversation is accountability and how we all go about driving that in the classroom. Now, our behind the scenes conversation about how our feet are hurting in these classrooms because we are the ones that have been on the floors doing the work. I used to tell them I have my Crocs on right now that I taught in a few years, let me just say a few years ago, because then I'll be saying how long I've been teaching. But I used to take my shoes off to be comfortable and create, you know, that atmosphere in my classroom because I had rugs and, you know, I had my own little setup. It was a vibe, right? Because I had the autonomy to create that. So aunties, as we get ready to close out, what can we give to the people about how we can be more mindful of the things that we're doing as we dismantle the system, not to criminalize our Black children, as well as those who are working with them. So go ahead and share us your thoughts.
I think for me, and it's because of who I am. I think that building relationships is the most important thing right now. Is building a relationship with the teacher, building a relationship with that building a relationship with the children, knowing the children inside of the schools, you know, having as a parent, going up to the school, as a parent who can't go up to the school, building a relationship with another person that can. I believe we should have grandmas in schools. Okay. I think we should have grandmas walking the hallway, you know, and, yeah, I think it's truly all about building partnerships with the principal and parents. I mean, take some apples. I say that quite frequently. When you go up there to bring a bag of apples and get to know who's teaching your babies and find out what they're teaching your babies.
And I agree 100% with what Toya said. I am a firm believer in letting people know your auntie status. When you go up to the school for your kid, I hug so many other people's kids. I mean, pre-COVID anyway. I hug so many other people's kids and let them know, I see you and I know who your parent is. And if you need something and your parent is not here, the auntie is here to help you out. Right. And I also let the teachers know I'm in contact with this young man's mother. So if it's something that you need to relay to her and you can't get in contact with her, get in contact with me. I'm there to support the kid, the teacher, and the parent.
Auntie Elaine, I said that to your baby last night. I was like, look, I was on the phone with him. I was like, look, let me tell you something. I know who your mom is. So if you ever need to talk to somebody, come on and call Auntie Toya. I'm not like your mom, right? But I gotta feel you running around. He was cracking up. So yeah, it's all about the auntie love.
You guys know
Auntie Renee was looking like, child. Go ahead, Auntie Renee.
that's because I always say it, and they be like, Renee, you're not really. I'm such a rebel. I'm here for it all. Like I like to say now, I throw out hollow tips, and they're like, oh, what? Yes, hollow tips. I'm giving you straight data because that's what seems to move people nowadays is data. But you have to know yourself. Like Gwen says, you have to know yourself. You have to know your child, and you have to know your rights. We're going to know your rights should be first. We have to start teaching our kids their rights from the
That's
beginning,
good.
and things will be
That's
much
good.
better. We like to speak health and wealth into the community. I love y'all. I really do. We here for y'all. Three
That's
Woke Aunties.
awesome. And so the takeaway is, guys, the Black family unit, whether it's traditional mom and dad, grandparents, aunts, big sister, big brother, god, daddy, whomever, that is raising, leading our children, it's important that we stay connected, that we share our resources, that we also share our perspectives. We all want change. We may not agree on how we get it, but we definitely know that the current education system has failed enough of our Black children, and we need our own. We can't get into reparations right now and the monies that is needed to go to so many of these activists that can be building their own networks of schools and driving curriculums that will do the things that we know are needed for our children. But it's a start, right? It starts with how we share our stories and what we're doing right now. So with that being said, we're at the end of our program. I'm gonna let Brother Neo give us anything that he may want to shout out before I close us out. So, brother, do you have any last words for us?
Yeah, shout out to the aunties. Make sure you catch their podcast. They got their own podcast. It's dope. Check it out.
Awesome.
And thanks for being on the show today.
Yes, we had
Thank
you
y'all
guys
for having us.
Thank y'all.
Please check out any of the shows that are on the Citizen Ed page, a part of our network near and far. I like to talk in this hour, but in Atlanta, I'm lifting it to my students to share their perspectives as they're the ones in these classrooms and in communities and being impacted by these things. And so on tonight at 6 p.m., we'll hear from Black girls celebrating Black History Month and speaking to how we can better protect them in communities and schools. And I think that as Black women, have definitely been attacked in Georgia from this election, that we definitely need to hear their voices. So go ahead and subscribe to the Black Wall Street Times, subscribe to Atlanta, check everybody out on Citizen Ed. Also send up a prayer and some love to our sister Tanisha. We miss you. We love you, sis. Happy heavenly birthday again to your mom. You are definitely continuing and celebrating her legacy every day. So proud of the work that you're doing. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this out. Peace and love, y'all.